Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to 22 Panels. Returning tonight is one of my favorite guests. Uh, uh, One of these days, I'm gonna like full on call you a friend when we start like sending
You
emails
go
about
ahead.
things that
I'm
aren't
down.
just, hey, time to come on again. Because we always have such a good time. We should talk more often.
Yeah.
Stephan Franck,
Hey.
um, animator, cartoonist, and creative mind behind one of my favorite crime stories. And like saying that is not easy for me because I am a huge fan of Brubaker Phillips and Criminal and have been forever. And I'm not only a huge fan of Condon and Phillips and their That Texas Blood and now Peril of the Brutal Dark, but like good friends with Chris Condon. So it's like it's always weird for me when last year at the Eisners, I like there was one category that I had three friends up for, and I'm like, how do you root for anything anymore?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know.
Now I can't say best. I have to say one of the best because but Palomino is a special series. It blends a long term unsolved mystery with periphery crimes around it, a family drama, a coming of age story, and employs music in a way not often seen in comics that is truly it knocks my socks off every time.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
like you blow the door down with no literal sound,
Hmm.
which is a feat. I think the only person in comics that does music as well as you right now is I hate it when the name just escapes my mind.
I'm
I
terrible
probably
with names myself, so.
I probably even have one of his comics nearby because he just started another series. Um, Talk amongst yourself. Somebody give us a good topic. Dave Chisholm had the right
Uh,
name. Dave Chisholm, but like he's a PhD jazz trumpeter, so like I know that music's going to be really important for him. And I guess you've got your experience playing
mhm.
guitar too, so it makes sense that it's
Yeah.
important to you.
Yeah,
Uh,
for me, the one when I'm drawing or I'm telling a story visually, to me, there's two kinds of drawings you can do. There's symbols and they're things that try to more represent, either like a sensation or like just a physical object or a physical moment, and so the symbols, would be like, like the old, somebody's surprised and you put like little question marks around their heads and or
right.
somebody's like being knocked out and then you have the little flying little birds around their head and so
Or
those are
stars.
or stars, so those are symbols and you get it, so you get the idea across, but and you get the joke across because it works for the joke, but I don't think you're getting the sensation of it,
Right.
right? And so there's a sort of abstract separation from the experience, and so it's there's an obvious choice that people do very often, which is to put like, okay, we're in a club, there's music, blah blah blah. Let's put like musical notes, and to me, those are symbols because no one reads, like, who knows how to read music, like for real. And even if you can sort of almost do it, like, who gets an emotional response? It takes being a professional musician to look at that and get an emotional response from it, right? So my approach was completely different, which is let's try to capture the moment of what it is to be in that place at that moment, and how the characters react, how they just to try to, and so it's almost beyond words. I can really explain it, but what I mean? Just trying to capture that vibe, always be in the moment and the vibe, and then the context. you know already understand by the context that there's music playing, so you don't need the symbols. Just like trying to just deliver that experience of what it feels to be there. And then that's kind of that's my take on it.
That sounds about right. I mean, I think the symbols can work sometimes, but like even when you do the symbols, you gotta like because Dave sometimes will actually put the actual notes of something in,
Mm,
but it's not alone. It's not on its own. It's
right, right.
part of something that makes you feel it come out, but it has that added bonus that if you can read music and hear it in your head, you're going to know exactly what's
Yeah,
coming
yeah. Then you know
out.
exactly what it is.
um I'm not I can read music, but I'm not that level where I can but I remember talking to him about it. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to name the song because I don't want to deal with copyright and whatnot. But yeah, some people will see that and know exactly what it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and again, for some people it will elicit that response, which
Right.
is great. But I know for me, it just becomes a symbol. Yeah, I get it,
No.
it's music. And
Yeah, yeah.
not to say that people haven't done it super well. And again, that's the
Well,
beauty of comics. You there's a lot
but
of different ways to.
also the big difference if we're comparing and I don't need to compare and won't anymore after this is like for the most part he's doing jazz and you're doing songs with words. So it makes a lot more sense for
Right,
you to have the words vibrating
right,
across with I mean, what I'm thinking about is a trumpet solo, right?
right,
It's
right.
um, so I mean, it's just you just wind up displaying them differently. Um, but yeah, so I mean, again, and for that matter, even in this volume, which has less music, I think, than the previous volumes,
Yeah,
but you still have that like I have essentially zero drug experience. I've been drunk enough times to almost fill one hand. Four times in my life I've been
yeah, yeah,
drunk. So like I don't literally know what that feels like, but you have a, a, a sequence in here where everybody's high as a kite and or
yeah,
tripping or whatever, and I can feel it even without having that. And I've read other comics, some that successfully take me there, and some where it's much more symbolic. It's like I know the characters are there, but so I mean, that's something that's just a recurring theme in your artwork is you take these sensations um
right.
and make them come through.
Well, thanks for saying that. That's really is the what I'm trying to do. Well, first I'll say the drug thing is also from imagination because I'm not a drug person at all.
I mean, you
Oh,
live in LA, so
yeah,
you're
it's just
allowed to
that.
say, well, the 80s were a crazy time.
No, not for
Nobody
me.
would look
Like they
worse.
were. No, I mean, I did a fair amount of drinking in my life.
I'm
Especially
not
when I
trying
was
to make
young.
you into a
But
druggie, Stefan.
no,
I'm
no,
just
no, it's very cool. But yeah, I'm just saying certain things you have to imagine. Like the
yeah,
reason I don't do drugs is because I know I have this type of personality that if I started, I would never stop. So it's better that I
right.
never start.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but the but yeah, so and it was really interesting too because there's what's talk about the moments. What I really like about this final volume is it all plays out almost in real time, right? You
Yeah.
don't cut to tomorrow, or whatever. It's just this one crazy night that
Though that
you,
actually reminds me of something that I wanted to bring up because I was impressed at the way that it worked out. So give me a second. I gotta go get to the page because we are talking right now. I want to say 30 years and a day after this story ended. Does that sound right?
I would have to check.
I think it was March 19th,
Oh, there you go.
maybe 31 years in a day. I think it
31
was
year
March
because it's
19th,
1995.
1995
That's crazy. Yeah.
is 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 the last date listed And of course, it's taking time to load right now.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
no, when I got to that, I'm
that's
like,
funny. I never
man, I
noticed
should call him right now and say,
that.
hey, can we move it up just so we can?
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, that won't work.
Hmm.
I'm already talking to somebody tonight. But yeah, no, that was a weird synchronicity for me when I saw that, particularly because again, autistic pattern numbers
Yeah.
guy, you
Right.
know, I immediately latched onto that. The only thing
Yeah.
would have been cooler is if you'd made it my birthday, which is next week.
Well, happy birthday in advance.
You know,
But you're right though, like it's like this whole book is about synchronicity. This whole series is about
yeah.
synchronicity, about, you know, events, that, she's
Oh, I'm
retracing
sorry.
somebody else.
March 18th.
18th. Okay, so
Yeah.
we just missed it. Like,
4:45 a.m. is
yeah,
I
yeah.
think our
Yeah.
last dated timestamp.
31 years.
Six 45 is the last time we're given. So yeah, 31 years and a day and a half ago.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, which is exactly, it's exactly like because I arrived in LA in September or October, I can't remember. I think October 1995.
Okay.
So that's the end of that story, and that's my starting point, in LA. So
Okay. So you arrived in LA after the Palomino then?
yeah, it was just closed. It just closed.
Okay.
So I never saw it in action. I did ended up, getting to know and working with the musicians at other clubs, so I know the scene really well. I know the stories really well. I know the overall vibe because I've been playing in those type of places since I was, 15 until I stopped maybe like 15 years ago. Uh, but so it's all, yeah, yeah. So it's really trying to recapture that experience and
Yeah.
those moments. There's a certain texture to it, that is there again very specific, and I think like a lot of the specificity comes from animation. And when I mean animation, I mean specifically I started as an animator, which is
Right.
that you're like acting. You're splitting the acting performance you have an actor who's performing it once and you're recording them, and then you have this recording and you're trying to inhabit that role and just trying to be in every subtlety, in every intention, in terms of, also, understanding their subtext, so you understand what they want to show, what they don't want to show, like how the character is either open or guarded, and and all that stuff. And it's about, and you're living in the frames, right? Because just
Right.
because you have this thing called we used to call the X sheet, the exposure sheet, right, where you have every frame vertically, and then the dialogue was broken down, and you were trying to see this performance exist visually and in time, and just so you'd listen to it because it was, like, especially back then 30 years ago, right? You didn't have, so basically they would give you a tape of the sequence, and you had this little tape recorder by your desk, and you would rewind, play it, and as you listening to it, you're drawing it at the same time, trying to really be in that, so there's a very sort of method kind of vibe to it, because again, you're just trying to merge yourself, to disappear yourself into that performance, and just kind of match it moment to moment and be true to it, and to its intentions, the one that are explicit, the one that are hidden. And I don't animate per se anymore, but when I do the comic, I'm still in that same mode where I'm in the moment of the performance of the script, and I'm just trying to capture the energy of being there at that time.
Um, oh, so many questions. Figuring out the order to put them is difficult. I think that flows okay to like help me out because I'm terrible with names. What was the daughter's name?
Oh, Lisette, and
Lizette.
then Liz when she's a little
Liz.
bit older goes by
Talk
Liz.
to me about, I mean, because like we don't expect it in issue one, but or volume one, but by the end of even like volume four or so,
Hmm.
it becomes clear that it's more her story than anybody else's. And
Right,
certainly
right.
by the end of volume six it is. Um, so two questions. Like, is that something that emerged as you worked, or did you know that it was Lizette's story when you started with that first volume? Because like she was a major supporting character at the beginning
Right,
of this story.
right.
I mean, the opening scene is her.
Is her.
Um,
So it emerged. It
okay,
presented itself. I literally, when I was at the end of volume three, and so that was done, and book was coming out and whatever, and I had to start in earnest on four, five, six, and finish the story. I just woke up one morning and I just realized that it was her story. That what
okay,
needed to happen there was a 15-year time jump, and she was taking over the investigation.
yeah,
And what's really funny is that then I started to go like, of course, you have this idea, and then you go like, okay, well, is this contradicting anything that I've laid out before, right? Because you,
right.
you can't deny what's been already expressed. And so I reread the whole thing. I was just like, oh my God, it was there from the beginning. As you
Yeah,
said,
no.
she's in the first scene, and
Hmm.
it's just somebody who's like she's the main character in training, but
Right,
she's too young. She doesn't have the agency yet, right?
right.
And so it's going to so it so I would say that it was always there, but I didn't know.
Yeah, no, I mean that's why I had to ask the question because as soon as it emerges as a reader, you're
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, no, this makes total sense.
Right.
It's not jarring in any way. It's not like, well, wait a minute, I thought it was so and so's story. It's oh, but at the same time, it's noticeable enough, and I know enough about creators that I'm like, this could have gone either way. It could have been that you had the whole thing sketched out at the beginning and you kind of knew that you were going to have this shift. And it could be like it's in my head because I'm at C2E2 next week
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like one of the rare times that a non-comic book related thing at a Comic Con caught my attention is there's going to be a West Wing panel with Martin Sheen and Dule Hill.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, and the reason this is in my head right now is I'm enough of a West Wing geek that I've read all sorts of process stuff from Aaron Sorkin and whatnot. Martin
Hmm.
Sheen wasn't supposed to be in every episode. The president wasn't supposed to be a major character.
Yeah.
But Martin Sheen made Jed Bartlett something that Sorkin needed to write more of.
Yeah.
And if that's true of Martin Sheen, it's doubly true of Dule Hill, who played Charlie Young.
Right.
Initially,
Right.
he was really only supposed to be in the episode where he was hired.
Really.
And then he liked him, so he wound up doing a little more. And by like the third season, he'd gone from being this character that like could have been a throwaway character if Dule Hill hadn't come in and killed it
Yeah, yeah.
to an actual credited character.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by
Um,
the end of the show, which is even after Sorkin left, he like went from being the body man to an actual White House staffer. You know,
yeah.
that's how much he'd ingrained himself in the series. So,
Right.
and for that matter, like to pull it all the way back to comics, I've talked to Beto Hernandez a couple of times, and
Uh-huh.
like he'll talk about how he doesn't always know what Luba or Fritz or whoever are going to do until they start doing it. And then it's like, well, if that's what Luba does, that's what Luba does. You know, they just live in his head.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
I think what it is it's about as they say, right? It's this is why you can't copyright an idea, right? Because it's like everything we do from all the way from movies to comics to everything in between, and it's about execution, right?
right,
There's no good or bad idea. It's just how you're gonna execute it. And execution is means performance, right? And those guys created a performance that was
right,
undeniable and that opened the door on some truth. I was like, wow, yeah, now it's open, and it's coming out. It's just, we have to go through those doors now.
right,
And it was the same way, like the way I realized that we needed to have this time jump and all that stuff, is that I started to write the scenes at the beginning of volume 4 the way I had sort of early on imagined they would be, with him, still in the same time period and stuff. As I was trying to quote unquote perform those scenes, because to me, when you're writing, you're performing a scene. When you're drawing it, you're performing now the text.
right,
It's always
right,
performance, right? Layers of performance. And so as I was trying to perform the scene through even writing, it started to feel false. I was like, this doesn't work. This is, yeah, I mean, I can force it to be this way, but it's contrived. It's not believable. It's just like, and then I realized it was just false, and that the true answer was no, now it's 15 years later. This is what needs to happen right now. So again, it's always like if you allow yourself to just kind of surrender to the performance and just kind of it's just going to open doors that you didn't know were there and can completely disregard certain other doors that you thought were so cool. Really, they were like out of, off topic.
right, right. Um, on the same vein, and you're a parent, so like kind of frame it in that sense. I mean, we met Lizette when she was what, 14?
That's right. Yeah, 15.
And and she's like 30
Right.
at
She
the
goes
end of
from
this.
15 to 29. I wanted
Right,
her 15 because so that at that age, driving was within range. Like
right,
she had that to aspire to, and.
right, right.
And then 29, so she was still on the young side of 30, because I think
Okay.
after 30, then
But
a different page gets turned with the character.
but talk to me particularly because you didn't write the intervening years.
Hmm.
Talk to me about how the character aged. Talk to me about how, because you can tell that this is still Lizette, but it feels like it has the appropriate, like, a 29-year-old looks back at their 25-year-old self and goes, "Holy shit, was I that person?" But they really look back at the 15-year-old self and go, "Oh my God." Just like I'm 46 and I don't even like to think about who I was when I was in my 20s. I'm sitting there going, I'm so
Yeah,
glad my wife met me in my 30s. I don't think she would have liked me a few years
yeah,
earlier.
yeah. No, it's funny you say that's very true. That's
And not
I
even
think.
because I was a bad person, just because I was a different person. And a lot of the
But
changes are the
also,
things she likes about me,
well, hopefully you grow, right? And
Exactly.
and so it's you look back at a time where you were less grown
Mhm.
up, or whatever, and you go like, oh man,
Well,
I
and I
wish.
guess that's another thing. I think it would have been easy to write this character where she'd
Right, right.
stalled out because her father had died.
Mm.
Stalled out because there was still all of this mystery, but she didn't. She's grown
Yeah, so
in that time.
she's a very interesting character. I love who she is when we find her because, well, first she was already a badass when we
Right.
first found her, right? But she
Right.
was already like reeling from like this, trying to deal with that first tragedy. And I
Right.
realize we're spoiling things, so like
I mean, the first
whatever.
five people probably have read, or if they
Okay,
haven't, well, like they should. And we're
and
not spoiling
yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm
It's
careful
been
about.
out. It's been out for a
Yeah, it's
while.
been out. I'm careful about what I'm saying about volume six
Yeah,
because you haven't even started this Kickstarter yet.
right,
But
right.
and I'm
So
trying not to get too detailed on the previous ones. I'm not sitting there
no,
going, so her dad walked into this place and
yeah,
this
yeah,
happened.
yes, this happened. No, no, no. Yeah, it's still gonna be a fun read. So she was already as a teenager reeling from that
From having lost her
from,
mother.
from having lost the mom, right? And the thing too is that he had lost the love of his life, and
Hmm.
also he had lost his shit basically when that happened, right?
Hmm.
So now he's in this double situation where he needs to keep it together and kind of try to put some, his life, kind of constrict his life to just kind of cobble a life together for what's left of his family, which is him and his daughter,
Right.
Lizette. And so on the one hand, he's like he himself is under pressure, and then of course he's under that question that anybody who has teenagers, has, which is, okay, my teenager's crazy. When do I step in? And, when is it a code red? And when is it just experience that I need to let it happen and
Yeah.
let them figure it out?
When
And
is their light? When is the light yellow? When is it red?
yeah,
When
exactly.
is it
So,
actually green? But like I'm a parent now, so I don't like thinking of that as green because when I think
right.
back on that, I go, why was I that dumb?
And at the same time, you have to let the kids, I
Yeah.
mean, that's part of growing up, right? Uh, um, so so he's in that very difficult place where he's trying to parent a teenager on his own, and meanwhile he's trying to parent himself on his own, and sometimes she's the one parenting him, and
Yep.
because she's also, but so she's this really badass character from the get-go. She has the wits, she's an old soul, she's like a true detective in her bones, so but then, yeah, the whole thing happens and he dies. And then it becomes, to me, yes, of course, she's still going to be that badass woman, now 29, who now has all the agency of being an adult. So, there's a strength to the character that couldn't be there when she was 15, but at the same time, there's also a case of arrested development,
Yeah.
you know, where like she hasn't given, she's in a job that's, she should have she should have been doing better,
Right.
compared to her friend who just went
Yeah.
on to do amazing things and stuff. So she's still on quest for truth, but at the same time, she's gonna so I'm trying to not give away too many details, but the point
No, I
is,
understand.
it's that balance between
In fact, I'm
somebody,
I, I'm literally cataloging a couple of questions.
yeah,
It's like I have to ask these after we're done recording.
okay. So that's the thing where when we find her in the second half of the story, she has the powers of being an adult, and she's still a badass because she always was, and she was always a little bit of a hard case also, let's face it.
Right?
But now there's this element of she has this case of arrested development where like she needs to give herself permission to live and to move past this, right? And so, but the thing that she's dealing with is too much to just move past. And this is what the final volume is, right? Which is that it's going to be one final night where all the web
Well,
of
and
mystery, right? And so you
like,
either survive, it's like solve it and get past it, or die trying.
well, and this is exactly where I was going as I was listening to you because, like, as so often seems to happen in life, she's been stalled out on one level for 15 years while still growing. Um, and suddenly, like, everything happens at once in real
Hmm.
time, in high pressure, in danger. in ways that complete, this is where I have questions to ask off the air because I can't, but the way I'll put it on the air, in ways that completely uproot all of that time that we didn't see.
Yeah.
In ways that like almost take all of that growth she has had
Hmm. Puts
and
it back
make
on the
her
table.
question it, make
Yeah.
her like, and again, like she goes from being on like a tricycle to like a supersonic jet,
Yeah. You know, that's
like
something
that.
I've heard said in life many times, is that the decline is long, but the collapse is like an instant,
Right.
you know? Excuse me. And I think like that this is what's been happening, right? Like this whole situation has been sort of festering and being kind of sort of papered over and coped over and stuff like that, for 15 years. And in this, so we find her in this status quo that is not quite living the way she should be living, but
Right.
she's kind of getting by, sort of, and all of a sudden, all those that web of lies and all those mysteries, just something unravels, something like somebody comes back from the past, who somebody she hasn't seen in a long time
Right.
comes back, starts asking questions about something because that's what her job entails, and the sweater starts to unravel, and when it unravels, at that point it goes fast and
Yeah.
everybody
All the
loses their
all the
shit,
dominoes fall
and
at once.
all the dominoes fall at once.
You know. Um and it's, I mean, it's a breathtaking ride. Like I had to split it up because I started it in between stuff at
Mm,
school, but like it was hard to set down every time I had to set it down. And eventually I decided, okay, I'm going to do other things in my free moments because I need to be able to take this all the way through when I
right.
finish it. And then I read it again when I got home. Um, because like it's breakneck in a way that the other volumes weren't. And that's not a knock on the other volumes. The other volumes shouldn't have been. Breakneck wasn't their pace. Um,
Yeah, it's like there has to be. I love it when there's a shape to the stories, right? And essentially here you're getting into the final act of the story. So the first act, it's exposition. It's like we're meeting the characters, the world, the situations, the plot thickens, things goes bad, and then you get to this final point where everything goes faster and faster, and now we're in real time. Also, that's something I
right,
love to play with. You know, in comics is to play because as I always say, I'm sure I've said it on your show like several times already, but it's
yeah,
one of my key things. You know, you can, in comics as in everything, but especially in comics, you can choose to compress or decompress the
hmm
storytelling, and
hmm
compress it to where it's just like, you know, you jump from one idea to another idea to like a different time to a different
right,
moment to and the next day and this happens, right? And then you can also do it excuse me um where it's you're reading the play by play of things and you're really like in real time, almost like like a film that would be one take almost, right?
right.
You're in the and so I
I would
think.
say sometimes it's even slower than that.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
it's weird
yeah,
because like as we get faster, in some ways we get slower because sometimes a page is actually it's slow motion because you're getting
yeah,
four different angles on the same second.
yeah. And every time because and it's not that it's the same thing that's happening every time. It's just that it's still progressing, but maybe it's like, for instance, at some point, as you were mentioning that, they're high, everybody's high, right? And so time gets dilated, and then at some
Well,
point,
I'm
somebody
just
says,
literally looking at a random page here
hmm,
during the car chase sequence
oh
near
yeah,
the end, where
right,
you have, you know, her car in front, you can see his car and the lights behind her, then you're inside her car. I guess if you pay a lot of attention, you can see that her head has moved slightly
right,
from image one to image two, and then
yeah,
you cut to his car, which is moving. So yes, time is passing, but
yeah,
like the feeling is that this is him while that's going on, and then you see him shifting gears, and you know that we're. But then the next page is still like face. Road, face, road. You can tell he's getting a little bit closer. Face, now he's on her tail. Like, but it's almost like you're getting different. I mean, Scott McCloud talks about it when one of my favorite chapters in understanding
mm,
comics is
yeah,
the
yeah,
one on gutters, and
yeah,
like sometimes they can be the passage of time, but sometimes they're just there to hold you in a moment and make you look at it from different places or whatever, zoom in, zoom out. For that matter, are you familiar with Jesse Lonergan's work at all?
no, I'm sorry, no.
Jesse Lonergan did my favorite book of last year. It's a book called Drome,
Oh,
um, which is it's like a fantasy creation tale, but but it's also like the things he does with panels and how he tells a story is just like nothing I've ever seen. Because
yeah,
one of the things I've learned from Jesse Lonergan is you don't even have to change the picture. He will sometimes have a page that's split into 30 panels, but it's
mm.
really one picture that's cut into 30
Oh,
panels.
yes, yes, yes,
But
yeah, yeah,
because that's happened, it slows you down.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
forces you to look at it longer, even though it's that one image that you might have taken in and turned the page
Yeah, yeah,
otherwise.
yeah, yeah. You know who does that too is Mike Diodato.
Okay.
Like on the he's doing some really interesting like his AWA books that he's
Yeah,
doing,
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
He's
I
doing
love
these
his
very
AWA work.
interesting kind of
Yeah.
an image that is deconstructed in those
Mhm.
pieces, and all of a sudden time, slows down. For me, it just goes for, as far as Palomino, it goes back to what I was saying about trying to capture like the being in the perception of the moment, right? Like
Right.
if you're trying to get away and somebody's chasing you with a car and you're in your car and you see them, they're gaining on you, and like how much can they gain on me, right?
Right.
Like the 5 seconds that is going to take for them to actually try to hit your bumper, get you off the road, right? Those 5 seconds are going to feel like
Like
20
forever.
minutes forever.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
time stops, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what it is, trying to being in the service of the experience of the characters so that the reader can be in that experience as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is like I, 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 I sometimes feel like I'm Chris Farley when I'm talking to you because I just want to say, that page where it went screen? That was awesome.
Yeah,
Duh, so
I love it.
stupid. Sorry,
Well,
my
it was,
wife's a big Saturday Night Live fan, so am I.
yeah,
So, like
uh-huh.
that's immediately where I go when I feel like I'm gushing rather than asking
Yeah,
questions.
you can't go wrong with Chris Farley. So,
I still need to read the comic. Z2 did a comic with his brother
I
Ryan
had no
Dunleavy
idea.
got to draw it. I think it's called Growing Up Farley. I forget.
Oh, that
There, there's
sounds
there,
awesome.
there's a Chris Farley biography comic that I
Hmm.
need to read. That's actually like also like I think all before he's famous. So it's
Right.
literally
Which is the
like
interesting part. It's always the interesting part.
right, right. Um, yeah. Oof. Gives me goosebumps. So let's talk nuts and bolts. When is the Kickstarter launching? Have you decided yet? Do we have a date?
Well, we're shooting for mid-April, if I'm correct.
Mid-April?
Um,
Is there a page to follow up? I should have
yes,
checked that
so I
already.
actually that this is why we're waiting for a little bit because we want as many people as possible to pre-register. So that
Okay.
way, we start to see, who's tracking, and so if you go to Kickstarter and you look for Palomino Volume 6, so there's a link up which is the pre-registration, which means that if you click on that and you put your info, then you get notified when when we go live, which is
Right.
super helpful because then people can
Yes,
jump
it
on it
is.
and
That's how
so
I get to be the guy that I forget which book. I actually managed to be the first backer on something
there you go.
because that's how quickly I jump on the ones from my friends.
It's thank you. Well, it's super important because
I think I
obviously
was four on yours last year,
oh, you were? Oh, that's amazing.
or some ridiculously high number.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you. Well,
Um,
because like the algorithm, obviously, I mean, it's also that game, right? And the quicker you get to your goal, the more the book gets represented on the front page, and then the more new people get to discover it. You know what I mean?
right,
So
right.
by you know pledging early, what you do really is you're helping new people find it.
You got some you have some very nice pull quotes here. Jeff Lemire says it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Comic book couples counseling, film noir style, and rockabilly confidence. Jim Mahfood was short on words, heavy on emphasis, badass.
There you go. That's him right there.
Uh, got some high praise from Alex Segura and Jimmy Palmiotti, a couple of regulars. Well, Alex has been on a number of times. I have a hunch Jimmy will be on a number of times because he had a really good time and we had a really good time
Yeah,
the one
yeah.
time he was on.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it's always like just nerding out with those guys is just fucking just
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, every time.
Um, so yeah, go sign up to be notified on launch. You will not regret it. If you don't have the first five volumes, I'm certain he will be offering at least digital versions and probably physical versions of all of those as well. Um,
Yes, all the
you
books. All,
you
so on
you
this
you can give
campaign,
them all the
we're
money at once,
all the money at once. So we're not only all the six Palomino books, but we also are offering the silver hardcovers, that are
right?
still as good looking as they ever were.
They are, I
There's
think.
Rosalind, which is the prequel to Silver, and
Yes, I
there's
got Rosalind last year, and I got the
Romance in the Age of the Space
yes.
God. Yeah,
Oh,
so it's just a fun one, right?
it's not like can I just say
Yeah,
that to be able to do a six volume epic like this is like what 700 page epic?
661.
Okay. 661 page epic, but also to be able to do what? A 25 page one shot?
42.
Oh, okay. So okay, it's almost a novella.
Yeah,
Like
that's how you look at it.
if you go do a 24 pages good or an 8 pages good, like you're gonna officially have all of the skills.
Yeah, well, and also it's a different voice, it's a different tone, it's a different
Yeah.
style. So sometimes it's just like you need that sort of
But
switch that.
I mean you like in the afterword here,
Hmm.
you talked about one of my favorite writers and I also love the specific story you mentioned. There will be soft rains.
Oh yeah.
Um, but like as much as I love Bradbury,
Hmm.
like even his novels are strung together short stories.
Right.
He is brilliant at short
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
Like the handful of times that like I think the reason that I am not huge on Something Wicked This Way Comes, I mean, it's good,
Hmm.
but why I'm not huge on it is like it's probably the one novel that he wrote, and he doesn't work as well at that length. He's the master of the short story. He can
Yes.
do
I
short
mean,
stories in the same world and string them together. I mean, that's what Fahrenheit 451 is. That's what the Greentown books are, other than Something Wicked This Way Comes. And again, I don't want to bash that book. Like
no,
most people,
I,
if they write Something Wicked This Way Comes, and that's the only thing they write, they're happy.
yeah, absolutely. No kidding. Right. Like for me, for when I was a kid, one of my favorite author, I mean, as many people, was Stephen King, you know, and I loved his short novels. I loved his long novels, but I loved his short stories as well. And to me, there's something really fun about telling a contained story that opens a window on a big world. I mean,
Absolutely.
so you get all the world building, and but somehow you're able to suggest it in these few events that are happening, and so I love that.
But it's still different skill sets, and there aren't a lot of people who seem to be able to. I mean,
Um,
I was talking to somebody recently that loves the 8-page stories that
mhm.
because there's a lot more anthology comics coming out than like any time since like the 50s.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, even as a
eh,
kid, I grew up on that,
right,
Metal, in France, right? Metal Hurlant, right? So it's
right.
all those 8 pages, five
A- a-
pages.
and it's great seeing all those eight, but I was talking to somebody. He's like, no, like I I can be constrained to 120 pages, but if you ask me to even do a one-shot comic, much less an 8-page story, is like I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, what's really interesting is that you look at those. I'm going back to Metal Hurlant, right? And
Right.
you have stories in there that I saw back then, so that's decades ago, right? I saw them as a kid, and they're 5 pages, 8 pages, but it's a world
Yeah.
I remember to this day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I think, um, if you do enough series that are 600 pages long, at some point the idea of doing short stories become very appealing.
Well, that I get too.
you know.
That I get
And
too.
the next thing I'm doing is a short story, in fact,
Huh?
and I'm gonna try
Well,
to
then
do
I'm
it in
looking
30
forward to it.
pages, and it's going to be in the spirit of those kind of Stephen King short
Nice.
stories of the. But the thing that I think where where it's hard is if you try to, you have to be able to hit the ground running
Hmm.
in a way that you're in movement, in action from the get-go. But through that, you're sensing the exposition of the world, and the all that stuff just comes in already in motion. And so yeah, that's I think that's the one secret, is to maybe one of the two secrets is, one is it's a short story, so it has to be in motion from the get-go. You can't take 30 pages to get like the first dead body to drop. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's gotta happen immediately, but in a way that brings in or brings on the world immediately as well. So you're getting it on those two layers. And then I think at the end, there's a way to my favorite movies or stories of any kind, is or novel, it's always like the complete story with an open ending, you know?
It's funny
And,
that you say that
and
because
so, because like, so at the end, it's not like the character got everything they wanted or will never got anything they wanted. It's more like, all right, so they survived this, now they're getting ready for the next turn of the
yeah,
next
like I said,
chance, the next
it's
whatever.
funny that you say that because like the feeling at the end of this book, and I'm going to try to do it without like giving away any of the details, is that the Palomino story is over, but Lizette's is not.
Right.
Lizette's might be just beginning, you
That's right.
know.
And
It
there's
almost, I mean, and you know, I wouldn't blame you for not having an answer to this question. In fact, I hope that you don't have an answer to this question. Um, but any chance we'll
no,
see her again?
yes,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't, um so as as we're doing this, we're also trying to put it together as an animated independent movie.
Okay.
And so the as which would be retell the story of the book series. But then when you start diving into these type of conversations, that's like, well, what would a sequel be? What is there a leg for a sequel? Da, da, da. And so I literally have two sequels ready. And I'm not gonna say anymore because there's like a big high concept in it that I don't want to give
Gotcha.
away, so I won't. But yes, it's a world that is very hard to leave,
That
you
that
know.
that makes me happy. I'm gonna toss out my. I'm gonna be even more confident about tossing out my random thought that I always think in like books like this is, and I don't think anybody's ever done this before. What I would love to see, and I'm not saying that you should do it, because particularly if you have other idea, if you have ideas already, I trust your ideas.
Good.
But particularly with like a book like this where the main character is in a noir not really by choice,
Mhm.
I've always thought it would be great if like there was a sequel that was a completely different kind of story. Like
Mm.
like we had a noir story and the sequel is the YA story where they're the mom and their kids are in middle school and like just to use an example, it'd be like if she was the mom in Drama, the Raina Telgemeier book. It was all about her kids being in the middle
Well,
school play. I'm not saying, I mean, that's why I used an example that's been written already, and obviously not with the noir beginning, but like I imagine in life that like a lot of people who went through something like this, if they could manage to not go through it again, would be quite happy not to, which doesn't mean that they don't have stories that might be enjoyable. They'd just be completely different kinds of stories. And I don't know if anybody's ever done something like that. It'd be like
well,
taking like it'd be like making the next Star Wars movie. Ray
yeah.
has a Szechuan restaurant on some
Hmm. Right.
outer world planet.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, those are all I'm not gonna elaborate because I really don't want to
Oh,
give
absolutely
anything
not.
away. But whether I'm thinking of sequels for Silver or for Palomino, those are the kind of thoughts that exist, and for both, I actually have, if I ever go back into making more Silver stories, it will. So that's the beauty of these things. It's like you want to do something that recaptures everything you've loved about this, but at the same time the doesn't rethread on what you've already seen. And even more so, that's the thing that I really hate in sequels is when a character has had this really meaningful character arc, but now it's not the same character as the character in the premise, right? So the sequel, like they sort of backslid, in
Right,
between the movies, and you're back to like
right,
they're like, dude, so in a way, it's very because I hate that because it kind of nullifies the growth of the characters, it nullifies some of the relationships that happen. with the characters that were all set up at the, so you don't want to you don't want to repeat yourself. You don't want to artificially nullify part of the growth or the character story that's happened in the first story just for the sake of being able to re-hit some of the same tropes, you know what I mean? So but in both cases for Silver and Palomino, I have ways forward if I, you know, live long enough to,
Well, I hope you do.
yeah, me too. But so that do I have good ways into that stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, that's all I say.
No, I mean like that sort of thing I've thought about, but like the thought that's like forming in my head right now that I think is new but based on a lot of stuff is like it's so funny that so much storytelling, um, even though it's so often about character development, like the next book or the next episode or the next movie or whatnot is about doing another similar plot or doing, I mean, I'm even thinking about Indiana Jones right now, and like,
Hmm.
and I love Indiana Jones, but as I think about it, it's like almost, whether you're talking young Indiana Jones or the most recent Indiana Jones movie, right? Like every episode, every movie, that is like beyond a once in a lifetime occurrence, except that Indy's had what, 35 of them?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, but
Yeah, yeah. But it's a hidden, it's like, or Batman, right? How many
right.
cases have Batman solved? Like
Yeah.
10 million,
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I'm kind of willing to accept.
No, I'm willing to accept it
The
too. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just it it's another one of those, I mean, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where the fast-paced comic actually kind of slows down the storytelling.
Yeah,
Like it's so weird to me that like as much as we love character development as species, as like storytelling aficionados, fans, whatever, um often without resetting, we don't give the characters different kinds of experiences. i
right,
mean I mean the difference in experience between Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade isn't that much. It'd be a way different experience if you went from Raiders of the Lost Ark to Three Men and a Baby.
right. Yes. Um, to me, well,
And I'm not saying that that would be good either.
yeah. I
it's
mean, it's just
weird
a
to me
different
how the
then.
human brain
Right,
works
right.
because
Well,
our lives are filled with different experiences. Yes, we have repetitive experiences, but like we're we're so defined by different experiences that that thing that we go through that we'd never gone through before is one of the things that will build our characters and whatnot. And as much as we love storytelling for helping us understand people and understanding characters, we tend both as creators and as readers, watchers, etc., to like want our characters to keep going through the same stuff.
so the way I look at it. Those are all really good points, really valid points, and I could add more water to your, what you're
Yeah.
saying. But I'll just for the sake of the conversation, I'm gonna look at it from a different point of view. Um, and I'm going to say it's like the blues, right?
Ooh.
The blues has three chords, and probably two forms or three forms that those chords can organize themselves into, right? So, you have 12 bars, your 16 bars, your whatever, right? So if you're not a blues fan, then every blues song sounds the same to you. But if you allow yourself to get into to enter that world and to kind of surrender to it, then you realize that every blues song is absolutely different, and that you can go to a blues festival. Like there's some people who go on a blues cruise, like on the fucking
Chicago
ship,
Blues
on the
Festival
boat,
is one of my
right?
my favorite events of the year.
And so people would be like stuck on the boat for like 2 weeks, literally all listening to blues like all day long for 2 weeks, right?
Right.
And to them, and rightfully so, every single song will be different. Every single
Oh yeah.
song will be a different moment, a different everything, right? So I think to me, you don't want to be too broad in saying, like, to me it's yes, it's Indiana Jones is a form, just like the blues is the form,
Right.
right? And so of course I'm going to want him to do certain things every time because that's the form, because if he doesn't do that, then it's no longer a blues song, you know what I'm saying? So I think that it's legit to stay within a form and to
Oh
keep
yeah.
exploring it and exploring it.
I,
The thing though is that you do, I think, where I think I would draw the line is that, because if you look at a story in terms of the three act structure, right? It's like it's the yeah, the character starts with the want, which is whether they want it or before they're forced to want it, but there's a want, right? And the want is also the thing that get the asses in the seats of the theater,
right.
right? Or
Right.
or the stuff on the cover that will make you buy the book or whatever, right?
Right.
But then the form of story is that at some point everybody's brought to realize the falseness of the want and accept the need, right? And so at that moment, like let's say Michael Corleone wants to be a gangster. He wants to be, and next thing he's gonna, because he wants to be part of the family, right? Like
I mean, really, it
truly
was
part
set
of
up
the
the other
family,
way.
right?
He wanted not to be part of the family, but
But he
but then
gets,
he
but
then he
again, the
needed to be
wants,
part of the
right?
family.
No, well, no, that's where I'm gonna push back on that, because the
He
want
wanted to
doesn't
run off with Kate.
yes, it's true, but the want that is not necessarily something that
Right.
they want right off the bat. It's going to
Right.
be the thing
Right.
that you as the audience want for them. And
Yeah.
everybody who's watching The Godfather knows that he's gonna become a gangster. That's the
Oh
want.
yeah.
That's
No,
what
as
we
soon as
all
he tells
want,
the
right?
story.
And pretty soon, even though he start doesn't start out that way, that one's gonna get like dropped on him and activated, and now whether
Right.
it's vengeance or whatever, he's
Right.
gonna get in there, right? And at the end, either like you accept the need, which is no, you need to turn away from that and do this thing you wanted to do at the beginning, or go with your family, not the family, right?
Right.
And so if you accept the want, it becomes, if you abandon the want and take on the need, like Indiana Jones, right? At the end of the first, at the beginning, he wants objects, he wants those
Right.
artifacts, he wants that stuff, and then at the end, he realizes that there's a falseness to the want, that certain things, that is wanting the wrong things in life, the
Right.
real things in life, that love, long, like true relationships, he's turned away from those. That's what he actually needs, right? And that's presented through the choice at the end, where uh, um, certain things are not for you, right? And he chooses not to look at all the craziness, right? Which is the stuff he wanted. He's been wanting to find out about those things from the beginning, right? So if you renounce the want to some degree and accept and pivot to the need, then it's a hero story.
Right.
And if, like Michael Corleone, you turn away from what you really need to do and double down on the wants, then it's a tragedy. That's why The Godfather
Right.
is a tragedy, right?
Right.
So the only thing that's tricky in my mind with sequels is that the first movie had that act perfectly well done, where the character most likely turned away from the want, the falseness of it, and and then embrace the need. And now you've fallen in love with what got your ass in the theater was what he wanted in the first place, because you also wanted to see that, right?
Right.
But then you've grown, they've grown. That's like the whole form of story. And then so the problem is, now comes the sequel, And the thing that gets the asses in the theater, it's still the want, but the characters
Right.
already abandoned the want, right?
Right.
So you need to find a way to do it in a way that it's still the blues, it's still the form, it's still the want. We're still gonna have all the stuff we all want to see, but at the same time that we don't deny the character growth that's been taking place in the previous movie, because otherwise the audience feels like cheated. It feels like
Right.
so it didn't matter. You know, that's when you start to
No,
feel
I think
like
you're,
nothing
I mean,
counts.
I've got dueling thoughts right now. The statement I'll make is you're making me realize why I like Crystal Skull and Spear of Destiny so much. And it's
Mm,
because Marion's back.
right.
It's because Marion's back. It's because he gets the opportunity to look at this thing that he had pushed away that was really what he needed,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but also you somehow managed to take us all the way back to the thing we forgot to record because we just got into talking. Um,
Mm,
because where this segues really well is like off air, you had mentioned that a lot of it is the specificity
yeah. Yeah.
that by
Yeah.
using that same form, it means that we can pay more attention to the details, the
Yeah.
the bring out the character,
Yeah. Exactly.
that's made it go full circle because I was asking more of a philosophical and psychological question than trying to critique the way we make things. I
Right.
was
Right.
trying to go, why do we do it this way? Because if you look at it from a certain perspective, it seems counterintuitive. But then when I go full circle back to the specificity, it's like, oh, the reason we'll go ahead and use the same plot or a similar plot or whatever is it means that we can focus more on the stuff that matters. We
Yeah.
can, okay, I know what an Indiana Jones movie feels like. And unfortunately for some people, like if you don't nail that part, it's like the people who don't like Crystal Skull at all, the people who like Spear of Destiny only a little bit more, it's because they feel like the plot's gone too far away or it's become too weird. You know, they don't like the time traveler, they don't like the alien. And for me, I'm sitting there going, well, that fits in because like the 30s was a cult, the 50s were aliens. The 60s were when we were getting into trippy shit.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
that
Exactly.
it all fits into me. And what's important is like how Junior is behaving. I like calling him Junior sometime.
Hmm.
Junior.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, no, as I think of it that way, the reason why um I recently was part of a book club discussion of Darwin Cook's Parker. And
Mm.
I am not only a fan of Darwin Cook's Parker,
Yeah. Yeah.
I have read all of the Parker novels a couple of times. I have um seen most of the movies based on Parker novels. A couple of them are hard to get your hands on, including an Italian one that's supposed to be a really, really good adaptation of The Score, which is such a great book that I'd love to see a good adaptation of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but like one of the things that a lot of the people were frustrated with is they're like, I don't see any character development at all. I mean, yes, we've got these tight heist jobs, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, no, the weird thing about Parker is like he prides himself on not changing, but if you read the whole thing, he does. It's just really fucking slow.
Right.
But there's something true about that. And for that matter, like because he's somebody who prides himself on not changing, because he's somebody who built into his character is like, I work once or twice a year and then just go goof off. Only you can tell that he's only really alive when he's working, which makes it that much weirder. I mean, like, I have elaborate possible backstories for Parker and how he became who he is. I think it's a worthwhile thing to examine at some point. But like the shift also becomes like he winds up with a woman from one of the jobs, like the eighth or ninth book. You know, she came in with somebody else but left with him. And even though he'd sworn off that because like famously that first book, he's he winds up in jail for the first time and only time because his wife had shot him in the back.
Mhm.
um but while you don't see it, like what you start to feel is that he does have a life that he cares about in between jobs. He's starting to behave just a little bit differently between jobs, particularly because while she'd been part of that one job, she was then like, I want to be with you, but I don't ever want to do this again. You can go off and do that and then come back to me. And I understand that that means that you might leave and never come back. And I'll deal with that. Like, but again, like the character development happens over this really small amount of time.
Yeah.
And,
And
and I guess where I'm going is
right.
that you know that you've got a semi-repetitive plot. In fact, they're very formulaic. I mean, if you break it down, it's like, okay, you're going to have this and then this and then this and then that and then this, you know. Um, and the first part is going to be from Parker's point of view, and the second part is going to be from different people in the crew's point of view, and then you're back to Parker's point of view.
Right. Right. So
um,
we're back to the blues,
right,
you
exactly.
know?
Um, so yeah, no, see, look at that. We talked our way through what in the human condition made it so that we tell the same story but have the characters change.
Yeah, I think that's the the human condition is that it's holding these two ideas at the same time that are opposite on everything, right? Like
Right,
that nothing, the human condition hasn't changed in ever, you know? People
right.
are still people and will be people until they're replaced by AI or something, you know? But as long
Yeah,
as they're
AI's got a
people,
long way to go to be able to.
right? So everybody's the same and yet everybody's different. I think
Mhm.
that's the it's and that sort of complexity and that tension between a character, because some characters are on a hero's journey where it's all about their change. It's all about
Right,
some sort of awakening of some sort, um and some characters are agents of change, you know
right,
and sometimes they never change and sometimes they change but ever so slightly, right? Like Dirty Harry changes over time, but
right.
it's so uh, um so and
Sometimes they change the people around them more than they change
yeah,
themselves.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so but I think it's just like gravity, right?
Hmm.
The Earth, orbits the sun, but the sun still feels the Earth's gravity, right? So even the side of the equation that ends up, they're supposed to be the unmovable object, still is affected by the smaller object, and that's
Right,
why those characters who first enter like the narrative, whether it's a series of books or whatever, a series of movies, whatever, as this agent of change who they themselves don't change, right? Uh, um, but they do.
right.
And so, and change, in fact, has, I'm just bringing it back to Palomino because change is, and and the tension between what's permanent and what isn't has become one of the main themes in the series,
Yeah.
you know, where like the anybody who's listening to this who doesn't know, the Palomino Club was a real place in LA that did exist and that did close in 1995. This is also why when I decided to do the time jump, all of a sudden it made perfect sense because 1981 was the height of the Palomino
Right.
and 95 was when it closed. So, and it had been around for 50 years, right? So, like this idea that certain cultural landmarks, certain people, certain societal norms, certain form of governments that you take for granted that you think have always been here and will always be here. Um, Everything little by little moves on,
And
and
then
so
sometimes speeds up.
right, sometimes
Right.
slowly, sometimes very, very fast, because like I said, the earlier, the decline is long, but the collapse is swift, right?
Right. I mean,
Um,
like you just made me think of, and they've done a phenomenal job of restoring it, but like how jarring was it when there was a fire at Notre Dame
oh
and to
yeah.
see this
Yeah.
cathedral that I'd
Yeah,
never
and
even been there.
right.
I've
And for
never
the
been to
first,
Europe,
you're right.
but it's like this, it's this thing that's supposed to be in the world and it's suddenly
That's right.
not
And for
there.
the first time, you're entertaining the idea that there could be a world without a Notre Dame.
Right.
And when you start to open that
Twin
door,
towers in the United States.
Twin Towers,
Yeah.
and who knows where else, right?
Right.
So, you know, as everything, nothing is that nothing like that is permanent.
Right.
But so you have to ask yourself then, but what is? What
Hmm.
is the safety rope that thread through all that stuff from time to time, from time period to time period, from person to person, from what is the thing that stays, right? And to me, it's the human condition, and it's the fabric of human morals, you know, and especially that's which is funny because like I feel like some of the books that I've done, I started them at times where it was just purely because I love the genre and I love and as you go through the process of manifesting them, that all of a sudden they find this resonance in the world. And so for me, for Palomino was like this thing, and I wrote about it at the end of one of the books. I can't remember it's 4 or 5, but it was kind of crazy. Like there was this scene, right? Like when the producer talks about the Palisades as the place. Like if you made it to the Palisades, you've got it made, and stuff, right? And as I was inking that page, that's when, the Palisades were
Palisades were on
burning
fire.
and we were on the
Right.
other side of town, but our side was burning too. And so we get to,
Right.
but, and so there's that kind of stuff. And then it goes back to noir, which noir is for some reason, everything I do is some version of noir. Silver was pulp noir. This is kind of neo noir. Uh, I would say Romance in the Age of the Space God is postmodern meta noir or something.
Yeah.
But the the point is that to me the essence of noir is that whether they're good people or bad people or they could be positioned either way, but the noir characters can't let things go. It burns their ass, so sometimes it's because there's a kind of greed, they can't let it go, and it would burn their ass to let it go, and they're going to follow that all the way to hell. In other cases, they're like they have this thing about injustice or lies, and they can't let it go, and even though they, by all means they should, because that pursuing it may have terrible consequences, but they can't let it go. And so like this idea of no values, morals, truth, justice certain people among us can't let that shit go. And those are noir characters because they're always rubbing against the rest of the world who kind of goes along to get along, or who doesn't want to see, doesn't want to talk about it, doesn't want to whatever. And so those characters find themselves in a position of resistance, which to me is where like the artistic sort of endeavor is headed. And like not artistic doesn't fucking matter, but like everybody, will find themselves at some point having to orient themselves in terms of am I rooting for fascism or am I rooting for democracy? Or and at some point some people will not let it go. And that's at the end of the day when everything else changes, everything else goes. That through line of people who didn't let it go is what stays and what history is made of. And that's the essence of noir, right? So mixing a lot of things together, but that's what kind of emerged for me, like from the soul of the story, as I would. And it didn't start that way. It started like, let's do a cool, crime thing at the Palomino, right? But you start with the fun stuff, and little by little, the story goes like, "Excuse me, I have something to say about this," and if you just let it happen, it will, manifest.
That have you ever seen a movie called The Good Humor Man?
I have not.
Uh,
I have a
s-
feeling you've seen every movie that it's ever made and every book that's
no,
ever been. Because I've seen a
no.
lot of movies, I've read a lot of books, but you, my friend,
Well, this is it just popped into my head because like it, I don't know how it generally gets classified because like it's a comedy. It's for sure a comedy. Um, yeah, well, at IMDb they call it slapstick action adventure comedy crime. I would actually say that it has a noir element, but it's a comedy noir.
tell me the
Jack
title
Carson,
again.
who's a comedy
But
actor, is in it.
right.
But
What's the title again? Sorry, can you repeat the
the
title?
Good Humor Man.
Right.
But as you were describing that can't let anything go, I was thinking to myself, yep, like what makes this movie work is like he can't let go that he just wants to get married to his girl. And
Right.
and he falls into this thing with all of these people who can't let crime go and he fell into their web and like they need to and it's like I think only in the studio era where they were making a film a week could this movie have ever been made because I can't
Hmm.
imagine the pitch meeting where somebody went, this is great. Let's do it. But it really works, you know. I mean, I can't take credit. It was Beto Hernandez that recommended it to it was actually
I
Beto and
gotta
his
check it
daughter
out.
Natalia were on the show together and they're the ones that recommended it to me. I'm like, okay, I have to track this down, which isn't particularly easy, but it is on YouTube with
Okay.
Spanish subtitles.
Wow. I mean,
It's in English, but it's got
you
the
met
Spanish subtitles.
that's awesome.
um,
You mentioned this thing of back when they were making a movie a week, right? There really is something to be said for making a movie a week. You know what I mean?
there
Like
is.
just pushing past the preciousness and just going for it.
There's going to be a lot of drivel too. I mean, like, what? I mean, every time I hear anybody talk about the movies back then, the comics back then, the music back then, however they define back then, I sit there going, yeah, because you only remember the good stuff.
Right.
Pull out the Billboard Top 100 from 1965. And yes, there's going to be like seven Beatles songs, but there are going to be 20 songs that you've never heard of. And at least 14 of them, when you play them, you'll go, oh, That's why I've never heard them. But they
Yeah,
were more popular than at least three of those Beatles songs.
that's right. But then
You
again,
know?
what stayed, what remained is the question.
Exactly. Exactly. So like I don't think you can judge a period, like fully judge a period until you're out of it. Um
Also, I think that there something where I feel like we're suffering from is a lack of context.
yeah.
Because I just remember seeing like when I was a kid, and like on the weekend, with my friends, we'd go to the videos, with those corner stores that where you could rent VHS
Right.
tapes from,
Right,
right?
right.
And so a lot of those movies that, so they had some big movies, but they also had all that the B movies, and
Hmm.
even worse, right? But like it was a lot of B movies, right? And we'd watch those, and they weren't like a masterpiece of cinema, but they were a great genre B movie, right?
Well,
And
and sometimes
sometimes, no, I was
go
going
ahead.
to say sometimes in our times, people have forgotten that some movies are made to be B movies. And sometimes I
Yeah.
see people criticizing some really awesome B movies, as if, yeah, it's not an Oscar movie. Why are you looking at it from that perspective? Look at it from the type of B movies we were watching when we were a kid, and in that context, you realize, my God, this is
Well, I mean,
delicious. You know?
I'll take it a step further. Is that like again, like if we're looking at the specificity, sometimes those B movies are as good or better than the A movies because
Yeah.
they're just lower budget. They're just this will be the third interview in a row that I've wound up. I saw a movie Wednesday night made by a comic writer or a comic artist, Jim Terry, who's done a fair amount of work with Tim Seeley and had a fantastic autobiographical graphic novel called "Come Home Indio" a few years
Mhm.
ago.
Yes.
Um, like 20 years ago, he and a friend made a trailer for a movie that didn't exist, but it stuck in their heads. So last year, they spent the year making the movie on no budget whatsoever,
Right.
but with a legit artist sensibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the way I've been describing it is like imagine Jim Jarmusch and Kevin Smith got together and made an action movie, but didn't spend any money on it.
That sounds pretty amazing. I want to see a Jim
It
Jarmusch action
was.
movie. Yeah.
It was amazing because they didn't try to be anything that they weren't, but the things that they were, they nailed.
It's funny. Like, you just touched on something that uh, um, I think I wrote about it in the afterwards of this book. Is like the sense of what's real, what's authentic, and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it boils down to that, right? Something that is just what it is. It's not trying to tip its hat to something. It's not trying to just, like, you know, wear somebody else's shoes or something. It's just owns, it is what it is, and it owns it, and just that's it. And exists. It just
Yeah.
exists, And that to me,
Well, and often exists because it had to. I mean,
yeah.
I
Oh,
think it
yeah,
was,
yeah.
it was,
Or
it
there was some
was
sort of fluke,
right.
it's
Well,
some
but like,
alignment
I
of
mean, this,
planets that,
this essentially lived in the head of two friends for 20 years until they're like, we just have to do this.
is it what can I see it somewhere? Is it on YouTube?
Not
Is it
yet. I mean, I hope that eventually you can. It's called Shank. If
Hmm,
if enough people keep plugging it and I keep whispering it to enough people, hopefully something could happen.
yeah.
Like it was I as of now, I think it was a one night only screening at a theater in Chicago.
Oh, that's amazing.
I mean, I would be willing to bet that 80% of the audience was either in or related to somebody in the movie.
Right.
I mean, I was friends with Jim. Tim Seeley, who is also friends with Jim, was also in the movie. I didn't see him in the audience. I don't know if he was actually there, but that was the type of audience that I mean, like after the show, after having seen the movie, as I was walking out, and like I couldn't stick around for the after party stuff because I had to teach in the morning.
Yeah,
Um, but I'm looking at the people in the lobby and I'm like, oh, I just saw you, and I just saw you, and I just saw you.
that's awesome.
I mean, again, the reason I say Kevin Smith is because it's both got the DIY Clerks feel to it, but also uses humor to acknowledge, it has a self-deprecating humor.
Mm,
It's like a lot of the action, it's old men trying to do action stuff, so they overdid it with the sound effects to make
yeah,
it.
that's great.
um or they'd sometimes overdo it with the blood or whatever, to like, yep, yep, this is all we can do from an action standpoint. Um, but then like the reason I'll like where it becomes Jarmusch and Smith is like there would be that scene in between that like is normally the I mean, what I love about Jim Jarmusch is like so many of his movies, it's and actually it was a cartoonist that turned me on to him too. Are you familiar with the Norwegian cartoonist Jason?
Yeah, I feel like I'm failing at all your
No,
references.
that's completely fine because you always turn me on to stuff too. But you would like Jason.
Yeah,
Jason does anthropomorphic stuff, but very Jarmusch like, often noir. Yeah, you've got similar sensibilities, not as cartoonists, just
yeah,
like
yeah.
as people.
I gotta check it out.
Um, but what I love about Jarmusch is like sometimes I feel like, oh, if anybody else had made this movie, I would have seen the exact opposite parts.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
In what sense? Opposite
Like,
in
well, like rather than seeing the action scene and the action scene, I saw them make breakfast in between.
Oh, I see, I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see. It would have been the negative image of the moment.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Um,
that's pretty
so
funny.
it had a little bit of that feel where
Yeah.
it's like you'd get to see him having spaghettios
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's funny.
or it had that atmospheric feel at times, and it just had fun. Like
Mm.
again, there was like martial arts ish, there was sci-fi ish, there
Really?
was
Okay, now I gotta see this.
yeah, no, Shank. I'm gonna keep plugging it.
Yeah.
Jim's planning on coming back on the show. We'll talk about it. I'll give him. I mean, I was just talking to Joe Illigan when I brought it up, and like, I asked him in an email today, like, and I don't have an answer yet, but I'm like, is there going to be any distribution? Are you gonna make it available digitally or on DVD? And I put parenthetically, it actually feels like it should be on VHS.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And if he did, I think I would either restore one of the
Yeah.
VCRs that I have
Right,
around
right,
or
right.
go buy another one just to be able to watch it because, like, it's been a long time since I liked a movie that much. Like, the older I get, the less I actually watch movies except for social reasons.
Mm-hmm,
Like, I read a ton of comics. Comics have
mm-hmm.
become my medium of choice. I
Yeah,
listen to
yeah.
books. Occasionally I'll read them, but most of the time I listen to books because I've got a long enough drive that's a
Oh, I
great
see. Yeah, yeah. That's a
get
great
like
way to.
45 minutes at a time.
That's great.
Um, but like most movies don't grab my attention. Most movies by 5 or 10 minutes in, I'm looking at my phone or I'm reading a comic book or, one of my co-hosts gave me an old Nintendo Switch
Mm,
for Christmas so I could play my baseball game that wasn't available on my PS4 anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so like I'll find myself, okay, I'm watching this movie because I want to be able to talk about it, but it's not holding my attention, so I'm going to split it with my baseball. Um, I went into the movie Wednesday night worried that I was going to be able to stay awake because I've got a history of falling asleep in theaters to begin with,
Yeah.
and I was spent. It's been a long semester and a long year. I mean, have you noticed that we're in like the 92nd week of January to 2026?
Yes.
I mean, when you wrote about Reagan at the back of this, I, I immediately went, oh God, yeah, yeah, that's really where it all began, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, a little bit with Nixon, but like there was a course correction, and we could have decided to go forward with that course correction, and instead we got Reagan.
Yes. And that's the hinge. That's the, that's when the old world of the 20th century just starts to, you know, die and
Yeah.
transform, and so there's this weird period which I think our generation lived through, like between the end of history, and the digital revolution. There's like
Right.
about 10 years in between, right?
Mhm.
Um, Not even. And you know, now you're in a different world, which took a few couple of decades to really truly manifest, but yeah, so that's I always love stories that take place at the like where two tectonic plates of history sort of rub against each other. That's why I love like movies like Excalibur, you know
Oh, I
where
love
you,
Excalibur.
you know what I mean, like where you have the old gods and like this sort of pagan sort of like animist kind of, sense of, the dragon, the night, so that's rubbing against, Christianity that's
Mhm.
taking hold, and, so and like at the fracture or the on the frontier of those two worlds is where interesting stories happen. This is where the Arthurian legends are taking place.
I
They
love
have
the
their
Arthurian legends.
mysterious roots in the old world, and yet trying to root for the order of the new world, so in that sense, that was also like with Palomino, that was also like the reason for that time jump. It's just that 1981, they always say the 80s are the place where the 50s came to die,
Yeah.
and then you jump to 1995 and people are starting to get like emails and office
Mhm.
computers and stuff like that,
Oh yeah.
and this
I
is where the
mean,
world
like
of today begins.
the I'm a huge baseball fan, and like enough so that I'll watch old games. Like for there was a brief period where there were lots of various DVD box sets of selected games or whatnot. Um, One of them, I'm a Cubs fan, and one of them was like a Cubs greatest, because it was before they'd won the World Series. They were doing lots of World Series sets, but the Cubs hadn't won a World Series yet. But they knew there was money in a Cubs set, so it was the
Hmm.
Cubs greatest games, and they did it by like player. Um, and aside from the fact that I remember watching it on TV, I really appreciated watching what was the Dawson game in that set. Because like it's 1987 and like the stands are filled with people in short shorts and dumb t-shirts
Mm.
and trucker hats that may or may not be. I mean, it's like a beach party,
Yeah.
right?
Right, right.
But like an 80s beach party.
Hmm.
Um like and it's not that. I mean, by like the 70s, people weren't wearing suits to games like they were in the 20s and 30s, but they still generally looked nice.
Hmm.
And by the 90s, you had more polo shirts or replica jerseys. Replica
Right.
jerseys finally became a thing. So there was like serious team gear,
Yeah.
right? So it's just this weird period.
Yeah. The 90s is when the phrase casual Friday get invented, you know?
Right. But it's like casual Friday gets invented and you actually become slightly more formal at the ball game, but really only
Right.
because you've created something between non-casual and hanging around in the backyard on weekends.
Right.
you, you know, um, and it's so weird to remember that like there was this brief moment where people went out in public looking again like they were hanging out in their backyard on the weekend, mowing the lawn and having a beer.
Right.
Um, and I'm somebody that like I'm the king of like wear whatever the fuck is comfortable. But but that's the other thing. None of it looks particularly comfortable. I mean,
Right.
they all look like on one level they dressed up or dressed for how they thought they were supposed to dress to go to the ballpark, except that
Hmm.
you're sitting there going, in what universe is this what you wear to a baseball game?
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
yeah.
I have the vision in my head. There's like a guy in a Goofy hat, like the Disney Goofy
Right,
hat,
right, right. And what
and like
year?
the
What
mesh trucker type, right?
right, right.
And it's like, so that was the only cap you had, and you decided that you were supposed to wear a cap to the baseball game. Is that what happened? And it was the era where like half the men were topless.
Right,
I mean, you still see that sometimes, but it's more the drunken frat boys in the bleachers or the people who
right,
actually painted
right,
something
right,
on
right.
themselves. Whereas it's like, again, you're watching that game. It's like, did they just not own shirts in 1987? I felt like I had shirts in 1987. And it's just this weird time capsule.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't know totally what point I was making, except that I'm playing off of like that's uh, in a
That's the
lot of
world that
ways, I think like you're right. History ended, or at least,
we thought so. You know, when the
well,
Soviet
it changed. I mean, because I kind of feel like we're in a post-historical society. I think, I wonder how historians will cover us down the road because it's almost like we keep too much information now. How do you sift through it to put
Yeah,
together
yeah,
a picture?
exactly. 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 It's yeah, I mean, who knows, right? Like
Yeah,
there's definitely a lot of new things now that weren't there before, like
yeah.
the tidal wave of information. AI, is also something that's gonna um do something, who knows what, you know?
It'll be a
Um,
while, and like I think, I mean, I know I'm in a minority opinion here. I think our biggest problem right now is that idiot rich people decided to start marketing AI as something that's nowhere near AI. And then they started then anybody who had a powerful computer tool decided to call it AI. And
yeah.
because some of what's done by AI is really nefarious, like the second you call it AI, a huge number of people either think it's amazing or think it's horrible without thinking about what it is. Um, the people who think it's amazing will try to get it to do things that it's not designed. I mean, the number of times I have to tell students, no, ChatGPT is a large language model. It doesn't know how to do math. It's not what
So
it's designed for.
well, I'll take it one step further. Whether or not it knows how to do math, he doesn't know that it's doing math. And to me, that's the real thing. right?
Well, but
And be, just to tie it down, to tie it back to what we were talking about earlier, in storytelling and the living through the moment and stuff like that. And that's why you're mentioning it. That's why I mentioned that story, with the soft, I can remember the exact
mhm.
title actually.
There will
Then
come
came this,
soft
there
rains.
will come soft rain, right?
Hmm.
That story really sort of, for people who don't know, it's in the Martian Chronicles, right?
Hmm.
And then you find this house that is kind of, and for something that was drawn by Wally Wood, 22 panels right
I know.
there, right?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
um,
His version of it's so good.
yeah. So you're in this modern home, and basically 60 years ahead of time, it's all smart objects, right? Like the
Hmm.
coffee is being made, the Roombas, you know, and then you realize that the humans are all dead. They're all died instantly in this, nuclear
Right.
holocaust,
Right.
and the house keeps going. The floor keeps getting vacuumed. The, you know, the coffee keeps getting made by the coffee maker. It's all AI basically, right? The word didn't exist back then, but that's what it is. It's all AI. But it's just this simulacrum of life when in
Right.
reality there's no one's having any subjective experience, right? And so as I was writing in the thing, it's like you're literally talking to the walls, except that you're, in this illusion that the walls are answering, but they're
Right.
not. You're just some
Right.
crazy person talking to the walls, right? And so to me, that is the real danger of AI. That is the scary thing,
Oh,
is like
absolutely. Absolutely.
people are afraid sometimes that AI is going to become sentient. So in other words, that it's going to have
Or
too much, subjective experience. And I'm not afraid of AI becoming sentient and having a subjective experience. I'm afraid that it's going to, by not having it and us interacting with it constantly, is going to drag our own subjective
oh,
experience
absolutely.
down to
Absolutely.
zero.
Yep. Yep. But I have a handful of students that might be listening, so I need to clarify that like ChatGPT as a large language model is essentially a predictive text algorithm on steroids. So when you feed a math problem into it, it is not even trying to calculate it. It is trying to find other examples of it on the internet and give you the next X number of letters.
And, and
Um,
it's and it's
which
not
means you
aware,
have to hope that other people did the problem right, or that there are problems similar to that on the internet,
right?
or because it doesn't know. And like, even if you want to use a tool for doing math, there are tools, many calculators, many online math tools that are designed to do calculations,
Yeah, yeah.
which is a very different thing, and like,
Yeah, so
yeah.
like ChatGPT, and that's with the math. It sucks at math, right? But also, it's this feedback loop,
Hmm.
where you're basically talking to yourself. So of
Well, I mean,
course, but you know what I mean, like where it's this
it will eventually
self-reinforcing.
tell you what you want to hear.
It's gonna tell you what you want to hear very quickly, and so it's just basically you talking to yourself at the
But
end
then
of the
the other
day,
thing
right?
is like, it has no ability to weight anything. So when you train it on the entire internet, it doesn't know the difference between the New York Times and Joe's blog. Actually, I shouldn't say Joe's blog because Joe's blog's pretty cool. That's Joe Posnanski's blog. It doesn't know the difference between the New York Times and Joe Schmo's happy fun times word place.
Right.
Um, like, even if you're using the software, the proper way to use it would be to limit what you give it to, like, I laugh so hard every time I read an article about some lawyer getting caught because the AI made up cases. right?
You
And
got
I'm
it.
sitting there going,
Yeah.
I guarantee you there's somebody that will sell you a proprietary AI that is only trained on Westlaw, that isn't looking at the rest of the internet. It is
Hmm.
only looking at the law database.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then that wouldn't happen. You're
Yeah, I
using
mean,
a tool, you're using the wrong tool to do something that you shouldn't be using it to do anyway, rather than using it as a high-powered search engine and then doing the writing yourself, which is the other thing. Like when you a baseball writer that writes about other stuff in his newsletter too was talking about this either this morning or yesterday morning. Like he's like, when I'm writing is actually when I figure it out. Like the idea that you'd have AI write it for you, and you mentioned this earlier, like you can't patent an idea, right? It's this idea that it's this concept that your initial idea
yeah, yeah.
is the work rather than
The
taking
exec
that idea and noodling with it and working it
right.
out and fine tuning it as you write it,
That's
you
funny.
know.
I never thought of it this way, but you're absolutely right. Like it's, the thing I always say is that, it's, and I think probably, I think either I paraphrased it or stole it. I can't remember, but it's from Stephen King's own writing book,
Oh, I
right?
love that book.
Where me too,
Love that
right? So
book.
maybe you can tell me if I'm just quoting it
It's been a
verbatim
while,
or
but
if
we'll
it's,
find out.
but where basically it says something like art is not discovered, is discovered, it's not decided,
Right.
right?
That sounds
And
right.
so like the idea that you're going to decide on something and some machine's going to execute it as if just that early decision was the destination or like the right thing, right? No,
Right.
the early decision that you have to make an assumption, but that's only your starting point, and through the process of doing it, this is when like either the solution or a better question is going to emerge.
Right.
And so, yeah, if you outsource the process, you're not just outsourcing the process, you're outsourcing that's where the magic is. This is where the
Right.
growth is. This is where not to
Well,
mention the fun of doing anything is the process,
I mean, add to that how many leaps forward are made by polyglots and Renaissance men? You know, people who are taking from different places. I mean, how much do we stall when we start siloing things? When historians don't look at literature, when scientists don't look at history, you know, the story of the world, any story involves so much more than just its main topic. I mean, I mean, just to bring it back to this, what makes Palomino great is like, it's not just about being a noir. Like, the time and place matter, the music matters, the Hollywood out of control hedonist culture matters. You know,
yeah,
it's not just a procedural mystery with no world around it,
right, right.
you know.
No, yeah, it's deeply rooted in experience, or it's either something that I know firsthand or stuff that I know of enough to make it believable, but it's yeah, excuse me, it's about the texture of those moments. It's about living through stuff. Yeah, sorry, I have to drink some water.
No, that's fair. That's even a good
Yeah,
idea.
right. I mean, it's been 7 hours after all. So no, that's Yeah, that's the thing. It's just trying to it to be a living and lived experience,
Right.
and hopefully characters that are fun that you feel like you've known your entire life, but at the same time you can feel the reality of their struggle and of their
Right.
natural. Like what we always try to do is even in Palomino, where there's a slightly heightened thing to the language because it is noir, so everybody's kind of noiry, but but in a way that feels natural, in a
I
way that
mean,
where never feels.
Dennis Camp and I went off on a tangent about iambic pentameter in Deadwood.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, sometimes like
Hmm.
uh,
Oh
yeah, you
yeah,
just like you can when you can heighten something and keep it natural, it takes on a different. I mean,
right,
we brought up the West Wing briefly earlier,
right. Talk about an elevated form of language,
Not
that's then
well,
it
not just
starts.
an elevated form of language, but like an elevated form of discussion. And like,
That's right.
I mean, still the part that I love the most is like TV. It's supposed to be what, a minute a page for
Yeah, I mean
for
that's what they say
roughly,
for, yeah, I think that's what they say for movies, but they also say dialogue eats up the screen and no, sorry, yeah, action eats up the screen and dialogue eats up the page. So in
right?
other words, the more anyways, I'm getting too far into the weeds, but
No,
that's
no,
like the one, yeah, it's
but famously, like
mhm,
Sorkin turned in like 160-page script for an
right,
episode.
yeah.
And they're like, you got to pare this down. He's like, no, I don't. Talk
Uh-huh.
faster.
Uh-huh.
Talk faster. And that's when they also started doing the walk and talks, which, when you think about it, how often do we do that? How many conversations have you had walking around a grocery store or
A
around a
lot.
comic convention? Or
Right. Right. Right.
we don't always sit down and talk.
Yeah. You know what show I feel is in that sense, is the descendant of the West Wing is Industry.
I need to see that.
Oof.
Industry?
It's great. It's amazing. It's amazing. Sometimes so intense that you gotta watch one episode and kind of digest it because it's so strong and intense. You gotta, but that's an amazing
Okay.
show, and like it's also a show where so the West Wing was rooted in politics, so you had all that policy talk that was you had to
All
keep
right.
up with. So here it's like not Wall Street because it's in London, so it's the city,
Okay.
but it's that finance talk that you have to keep up with and see what they're saying, and it's you
Right.
can do it. It's not out of reach, but
No, no, no.
it definitely is challenging, and
Well,
it's
and like I love the workplace drama or dramedy, and I particularly love it when, as it turns out, the workplace is really just part of the setting.
yeah.
You know, I'm good friends with Chris Cantwell, which is why I finally watched Halt and Catch Fire years after I should have watched it the first time. But since I
Yeah.
watched it, I've watched it over and over and over again because I mean, it was cool to learn more about the early days of computing and whatnot, but what was even more fun was like, and fun might not be the right word, but like particularly in certain industries or industries that are emerging,
Mm,
like there are a lot of people that will go from being coworkers to being competitors to being coworkers again to whatever.
mhm,
Um, you're that much more likely to have bigger egos because you're doing new things, so the interpersonal drama just takes on like so much bigger proportions because you've got different ages, you've got different backgrounds, you've got different personalities and skill sets, but they're all interested in certain things and they'll build a set of relationships, but then they'll be pitted against each other. And because their work and their friendships were so tied together, they have trouble going, oh, we're allowed to be friends, even though we're not working together anymore,
Right.
even though we're like competing with each other in the work
Hmm.
world. um,
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I feel like I've, a lot of the same people that I still see, and of course I've accrued a lot more people along the way, but they are the same people I was in school with, and we're
right.
in animation school together, 700 years ago, and then, you know, it's still the same. Or people I worked with at studios years and years ago, and um and it becomes a small world with its own language, with its, it's
Hmm.
just, and every industry, every trade has its own,
Yeah.
uh but the traditions, it's like, I think every trade, every job, every, has a sense of tradition, that things that again, I'm going back to that central
Or builds
theme
one.
of things being built and passed down to the next people. And
Hmm.
there's this institutional knowledge of certain things, you know what I mean? And
I
I think
love that
that's,
those words, institutional knowledge. I don't think we value them enough.
no, and you're obviously in education,
Yeah.
but in storytelling, in all the crafts, in everything, it's always being, everything I've learned in anything I do is I've learned it from other people who either gave me a word of wisdom, or I let me watch them work, or whatever, and so it's like, um you know and I'm a geek for the, like, complete sucker for tradition, and like in that sense, in like, for instance, there, if you ever go to the Disney lot, and work in certain buildings, there's this one building where you have, um, behind the glass, you have the first multiplane camera that
Okay.
was built by, Disney, for Snow White, or even before Snow White, and that's, yeah, and whenever I walk past it, I I feel like it's like you're going to a church and you do like a cross sign or something. You know what I mean? It's just like it's
Right.
whenever I walk past it, I'm just like taken by this sense of tradition, of our civilization. That's one brick in our civilization, and it brings me back to when I was a kid, and my mom would take me to Office Depot. So, no, 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 to Home Depot, sorry, where I could buy some piece of wood or whatever to try to build a multiplane camera in my room, and stuff like that, And so there's that, but then there's knowing that then I get to work with the people who learned it from the people who learned it from the people, and there's just something. And you were mentioning SNL earlier. I think SNL is
Hmm.
also one of those places where it has
Hmm.
been, I don't know how many, 50 years of,
50.
or 50, right? So I think that's what we have to keep passing down to each other. It's, that institutional knowledge and transmission of, otherwise, we lose the plot, if we talk about AI, that's the problem. I do I like that my iPhone correct my spelling when I'm trying to text somebody? Yes, I do, like everybody else. You know what I mean? But if you end up outsourcing to the, machine too much of that stuff,
Oh, absolutely.
then you don't know how to spell anymore. You don't know how to do this anymore. And then the
And
transmission gets interrupted, and
right.
then we're adrift because we're at sea. Anyways.
That
We saw
segues nicely into I now have two final questions.
Okay, because I was gonna say
One that you've
we
heard many
solved it.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. one that you've heard many times, but we're going to start with the new one because this
Okay.
segues really nicely to it. Um, I'm about halfway through my fifth year of doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like I've entered the twilight zone in the best possible way. Like my life has fundamentally changed in terms of the conversations I get to have, the friendships I've built, the
Hmm.
experiences that I like. I sit there going, if you told me when I was 10 or 15 or 35 that I was going to do this, I would have said, yeah, whatever. Right.
Hmm.
Um, and for that matter, the experiences where, like, even when I think on them now, I almost have to pinch myself and go, is that real? Or did I dream that I went to a baseball game with Dennis Kitchen? Or on Valentine's Day this year, I bought two cars. And mind you, it was because I had to. We'd had
Uh-huh.
we'd had both of our cars die that
Oh
week.
shit. Yeah,
And
yeah.
because of a connection I made because of this podcast, I was hooked up with a car dealer that was able to get us two good cars inside of our relatively
Yeah.
limited budget.
That's
You
amazing.
know, we
Yeah.
went from like freaking the fuck out to
Mm-hmm. No, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna work out.
what the hell just happened? Oh my God,
Oh my God, that's crazy.
in the span of an afternoon.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing that's really cool is like everybody I know in comics has experiences like this, has
Hmm.
feelings like this, and it never gets old for any of us. Doesn't matter how popular you are, doesn't matter how long you've been in the industry. You've got a story to tell about the time you met Stan Lee, or that kid that came to your table at con and told you how your book had changed their life in a meaningful way or whatever.
Yeah.
So I've started collecting those stories.
Yeah.
Tell me a story about some just surreal experience you've had that you wouldn't have had if you weren't part of this wonderful community of comics.
Man, there's so many.
Well,
It's hard to
that's why it's
right.
an
Because
every
also
episode question now because
it's
you
because
can
it's a
give me a
great
different
question.
one.
Um,
Yeah.
well, what did I say last time? Did I?
No, because this is the first time I've asked you this one.
Oh, okay,
This is a
okay.
new question.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
Eh.
Well, I have to say I've been super, super lucky in my life that I've had those experiences in music, in comics, and in movies, where in all of them, you know, I got to work and become friends in many cases with the people who were my idols, when I was a kid, right? If you had told me like, uh, um, you know, when I was even like in college, that one day, like Bill Sienkiewicz, that I would know him, like that he would know my name or my work, that let alone that I would know him as a person, let alone that he would write something super nice about, my work, whatever.
Right.
That this is I would have been like, my God, this is insane. But there I have many, many, many like that and also like I don't want to get
I
into
mean,
like
hell,
the
it's still surreal to me that I've gotten to talk and become friendly with Howard Chaykin.
yeah,
B,
Howard's
I
another one.
know
Yeah,
about your work because Howard Chaykin went from saying there are no good new comics to recommending your new comic
yeah. Well, see that
that
here's
that I
another one,
then
right?
became very friendly with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all that, right? But I have to say the most powerful experiences was through the conventions and going to places, and talking to some because I like you. It feels like we're both like we like to talk to people, you know, and and so at conventions it's really amazing because you go to places where that are not like industry centers of storytelling, you know what I mean? And then you find just people who somehow they they know your work and it meant something to them and they come and they share stories and sometimes it's really funny. Like for instance, this one time this one guy comes in and says, "Hey," and by the way, I always say this, but you can always tell when somebody's gonna has a story that they want to share because you see them, they're like about 100 feet away, like like at the end of the aisle or whatever, and you can see they're kind of looking at you. And they're like, "Am I going? Am I not going? Am I going in? Not going in? Whatever, right?" And then they make up their mind and they start to make this beeline for you, and you go like, "Okay, this person wants to tell me something." And like this one guy one day says, "Man, I gotta tell you, I was in this horrible sea diving accident, and I was stuck in a hyperbaric chamber for 3 weeks. And all I had with me was silver, and I read it cover to cover 24 hours a day for 3 weeks. And that's the only thing that kept me safe, sane." And so that's really really funny, but some other
Right.
times, it gets into extremely emotional moments where somebody will reference, maybe like in my case, like probably one of the, I don't want to say bad or worse, whatever, but like definitely one of the least successful movie, and not just box office, but that didn't quite, sometimes stuff doesn't
Right.
turn out right. Movie I ever worked on that industry people always go like, "Ah," and somebody just came in and said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that movie saved me from suicide," you
Right.
know. So if that movie accomplished nothing else, it was, well worth
Right.
the time,
Right.
we spent on it, and we whatever, and that's the other thing too. Sometimes we can be overcritical of the work because we're hyper focused on it, and we tend to, if you're too focused on what's wrong, you start to not be able to see what's cool,
Right.
and that's one thing that I learned. If I was gonna name one person who I think was, of all the mentor type figures that I ever had the great fortune to like work with and get to know and whatever, uh, mine was Glenn Keane, who, if people, I don't know if you know who he is or who people know who he is, but um, he's the with the like most prominent Disney animator of the 80s, 90s, 2000s. He design animated The Little Mermaid in The Little Mermaid, Pocahontas in Pocahontas, the
Oh,
Beast in Beauty and the Beast, all, Aladdin in Aladdin, and on and on and on, right? And so I got to know him, and to work with him for a while, and he, I, I was a little bit stuck, just being, coming from France, and French people think differently than, and so I was really trained on what's wrong about this drawing, what's wrong with this, what's wrong with this, looking for mistakes, fix the mistakes, right? And he was the first person that I saw who was a 10 billion times better than anyone else that I knew. But instead of being hypercritical, he was looking for what's true about this drawing. What makes me feel something in here? He would go like, this eye is amazing. Yeah, I'm really feeling the emotion in this. The rest is not, but but just doesn't matter. Refocus, start from the eye, this eye you have, and just rebuild from there. This is amazing, and like somebody who, and because animation as comics, but animation in particular is such a technical, we're talking about barriers of entry, like the drawing barrier of entry, and not to mention the emotional analysis and the ability to just put it all together in animation is so high that it's very easy to end up separated from your creative artist, from the kid in you who was excited about it, right? Because you're so worried about I'm drawing this wrong, you know. And so he was the guy who really, through just his vibe and like his generosity of the generosity of his vision of art and but people and everything, was able to put me back in touch 15 years into my, or 10 or 15 years into my career, um, back in touch with the kid that I was, who was just passionate and was just chasing some truth. You know, when that feeling that when you're a kid and you're trying to draw the Joker or Batman or whatever, and you're like lost in it, and you have this feeling that if you can get this right, everything will be right with the world, kind of vibe, right? And so he's the one who reconnected me to that. And if that hadn't happened, I don't know that I'd be writing and doing all the books that I'm doing now.
That is amazing. I this is why I asked this question now. I love hearing the stories,
Yeah,
and it's so true that like I mean what I immediately started thinking about when I mean particularly because I've had blues on my mind too is that I I I had friends that had a blues band, like
right.
a great bar blues band, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not I mean I think that they could have been more maybe except that it's just like you know like being a musician is like being a cartoonist or being a movie star or whatnot. There are way more people who are really good at it than there are really careers in it.
I'll tell you something. I don't want to derail your story, but I'll tell you something about that in
Yeah.
a second.
Um, but that's not even the point. The point is they were so hypercritical of themselves, and I would just
Right.
always sit there going, "Yeah, no, I have a pretty good ear, and I noticed one of your mistakes, but you wrote it and it worked. And like, I didn't notice all of the other ones that you're talking about. So I'm certain that nobody else in the audience noticed the rest of the ones that you're talking
Yeah, exactly.
about."
Exactly. They were too focused on the cool stuff you're doing as
Right,
opposed to trying to pick out your mistakes, you know.
right. Yeah,
The thing I was going to say about that is it's something I'm just repeating it. I've just heard it say fairly recently by some somebody in Nashville who was saying that he had heard from somebody else. So I guess it gets passed on again,
right,
tradition, right?
right,
That somebody was saying that because so many talented people show up to any big either music center, entertainment center, theater center, whatever, comics,
right.
whatever, there's every city has a sort of business that they're in, so many talented people show up, and the biggest predictor of whether they're gonna end up succeeding in that business is not talent, it's whether their nervous system can handle the industry.
Yeah, that makes
And I
sense.
and I think that is true for everything, right?
Yeah,
Where some people could have just the ability to, you know, end up, playing in stadiums, but if humanly speaking, that makes them miserable, and then it's not gonna happen just because it's not for
right,
them. It's not for who they
right,
are.
right, right. All right. Now the question that you've been asked every time you've been on and always give me great answers, which is why
Uh,
I always look forward to asking you. Tell me something you love, preferably comics, but we don't have rules. Preferably storytelling, but again with the rules. But something that you love that not enough other people around you have experienced, and you really want them to, so you have more people to talk about it with.
um, I have several possible answers.
You can give me more than one. You've given me more than one almost every time you've been on. You turned me on
Okay.
to Billy Strings.
Oh, that's right. So I mean, may have been maybe a lot of people, especially in comics, already know this, but I just it just came back out of the bookshelf the other day, just because I just wanted to just reread it. A couple of years ago, I bought the artist edition version of The Winterman by J.P. Leon. Do you know this one?
I know J.P. Leone, but I don't
Right.
know if I know the Winterman.
So The Winterman is this sort of superhero story, but it also not. It takes place in it's a little bit espionage kind of. It's got this kind of almost ultimate kind of vibe where it's like superhero, but more grounded in a certain way. It takes place in Russia, talk about the end of history, like in those years, like post-Soviet Russia and stuff like that. It's amazing. So I would highly, highly recommend that.
Oh, this looks good.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And I don't know if I have that yet.
Unfortunately, he passed away, as you know, a couple of years
Yeah.
ago. But you know, the some of his friends, Tommy Lee Edwards, for instance, who's also a friend of mine,
Yep.
and a bunch of other dudes put together. Chris Ferguson did the book design, who's also created the Palomino logo for my books. But anyway, so they put together this amazing artist edition of the series.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the Zoop campaign right now
Right, there you go.
and wishing that I'd seen it
Hmm.
when it came out
Hmm.
and wondering if I would have been able to afford it because it's right on the edge of like
I know it's a big one, and that's something that's the
nowadays
only
I'm more likely to pull the trigger on something this expensive, but I think when
well,
it was actually a live campaign, I wasn't quite to that point.
something. It's the only artist edition book that I have
Yeah.
because
I don't
yes,
have any yet.
right,
There are a handful that I'm very, very interested in.
yeah, me too. And especially since for me, I feel like I only learn to draw stuff when I see originals.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, when I see reproductions, it gets compressed. I'm not. When you look at the original, you can still see almost the gesture behind it. You can feel it. There's something
Gotcha.
about the physicality that, for many reasons, that just remain in the mark. And then that's when I see, oh, that's and so that was always the case. And of course, those artist editions. It's like you're looking at the originals. You're seeing
Yeah.
it just the same way. So
Oh, I was just seeing today that Fantagraphics has not one but two Carl Barks artist editions
oh,
on their slate for later this year, and it's like,
that's amazing, amazing. Be very curious to see at what size he was drawing those strips.
yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
But I'll be talking with Eric Stevenson on Wednesday as part of my I am treating myself to a baseball and comics roundtable on my birthday.
Nice.
Normally we do them only after the World Series, but opening day this year is on my birthday for the second time ever and the first time in the United States. And I'm like, and it's spring break,
There
so
you go.
I'm
It's
gonna have a roundtable.
meant to be. Yeah.
Um, and not Eric Stevenson, Eric Reynolds. Eric Reynolds from Fantagraphics is one of my baseball
Right.
and comics
Okay.
buddies.
Gotcha.
So he'll be joining us. So I'll have to ask him like how big did Bart? Because I'm always interested. Like have you ever been out to the Billy Ireland in Columbus?
No.
Billy Ireland cartoon
No.
library. at Ohio State is the largest collection of original comic art, at least in the
Like,
United States, possibly
that's
in the world.
insane. That sounds amazing. I have to say, I've never been to Ohio at all. That's one state. I've been to
I
many
mean,
states, but
overall, I
that's
don't know how much you're missing,
yeah.
but I think everybody should go. Everybody who loves comics should go to the Billy Ireland, and for that matter, everybody who loves comics should go to Cartoon Crossroad Columbus at least once.
That sounds amazing.
Um, because Jeff Smith and Tom Spurgeon started Cartoon Crossroads, and they kind of modeled it after the European festivals, where
Mm,
rather than having like one big convention space, they have events spread out across town. So
yeah.
there are events at the library, there are events at the Performing Arts Center, there's events at the art museum, there's events at the art college, and then like there are events and like the tabling area is at the public library and everything's free, you know,
Mm,
and like it's the only con you can go like I still like I still think back a couple of years ago, like in like a five table across the aisle from each other and next to each other, you had like Evan Salazar, who's a fantastic alternative indie comic guy. You
hmm.
had students from Ohio State that were in the cartooning program who literally had like their homemade comics. You had Shelley and Philip Bond.
Mm.
You had the table for like the National Society of Political Cartoonists.
Wow.
You had a couple of students in from out of town with comics that they'd like stapled together, and across from them was Dennis Kitchen.
Amazing.
And P.
Amazing.
Craig Russell was down the way,
Yeah, yeah.
and then there was other people that had made their own.
That sounds
Chip
like amazing.
Zdarsky was there for the
Yeah.
last, or not the last one, the one before that. And I remember saying to him, like, Chip, this is going to be the one con where a when you have your panel, the room won't be full because Jeff Smith's panel is at the same time.
Yeah.
And B, since you and he are signing at the same time, you're gonna probably for the first time in your life look out and see that you don't have the longest line among the people sitting. And I
That's
was
great.
right.
Yeah.
Because like I know Jeff well enough that I went to Chip's panel and it was a good room, but it was probably 80% full, not
Hmm.
full. And then like Jeff had double the signing line that he did. And like Jeff's there every year. So Jeff's line was nothing compared to like Raina Telgemeier's line 4 years ago
Mm.
or um Art Spiegelman's line,
Oh yeah.
you know. Charles Burns was there last year, Carol Tyler, I mean, so it's like the one con that like is not only all about comics, but like there's no low bar.
No, that sounds amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the next one they had to change it to spring rather than fall
Mm.
because Ohio State no longer gets their football schedule early enough for them to plan around it. And they did last year's on 8 months of planning and went, no,
Hmm.
8 months is not long enough to plan one of these. So the
No.
next one will be in April of 2027. But
Hmm.
I can't recommend enough. Like apply for a table, but even if you don't get a table, it's the one that I tell people, look, like go
Go enjoy it.
just go enjoy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's local and graduated from Ohio State, so he's a regular at this too. But like, I think it was 2 years ago, Durf Beckdurf wasn't tabling, but he was there, and I hung out with him
Mm.
some, just walking around, and he's like, "Yeah, it's so weird and kind of awesome to be here, but not have to do anything."
Yeah. Yeah, I had that experience one time in New York, whereas like the first time it was the COVID was kind of done, not quite, but kind of
Right.
like maybe 2022 or something like that. And I was there just for the release of one of the I can't remember if it was the first Abrams books, Silver.
Right.
And so all I had to do is just go do that one panel and that one signing, and then everything else was just hanging out, and I was like, oh
Right.
my God, that's a whole different experience than
It
when,
is.
to me, a convention is me at the booth, kind of working hard and selling and talking to a million people and stuff like that. So it was nice to be to experience it more like as a
Yeah.
free floating, thing.
Yeah. I mean, I know finances can be an issue or whatnot, but I think everybody in the industry owes it to themselves to choose like not necessarily a big con. It can be your local small press con or whatever, but to choose like one comic event a year to go to and just be a fan rather than be at
Yeah, then
work.
working. Yeah,
To remind yourself that, oh, this is a community. And I mean, you get that when you're working too, but like,
but it's different.
yeah,
It's different.
yeah. Well, Stefan, it is always a pleasure. We should do it more
It's my
often. We should
pleasure.
do it
Yeah.
off air.
Right.
Yeah. Um, so let me take us out and then we'll chat for a couple more minutes. For Stephan Franck, this has been 22 panels. The book is Palomino. Go sign up to be notified on launch at Kickstarter right now. Volume 6. He wraps up just an epic noir story. Um, thank you so much, and we will see you after the next page.